This is our planet, as
interconnected and alive as we are. It's our home, our mother, and our child to be protected. To live, we need Earth, but the Earth needs us as well. Racked by damage to the environment and beset by conflict and human rights, our planet is desperately in need of defenders, themselves in defense. What if you spoke out in defense of the Earth? Would you expect to be jailed, beaten, tortured, even killed? All over the world, communities and individuals, the most vulnerable, are at risk. Their lands laid waste by developments, their rights ignored, defenders under attack. We live in a time of crisis for the Earth, and for those who stand up to defend it. Now is the time to speak out, for those who would give the Earth a voice. It's a matter of life and death. A new millennium and an age of sweeping political change and rapid economic growth. It's called.
As we enter the 21st century, the global economy requires us to seek opportunity not just at home, but in all the markets of the world.
But globalization doesn't just affect markets. It also works on a human level. The technology that connects global traders also connects activists all over the world. More than ever, we need to forge new alliances and to begin talking to and working with one another. As citizens of a shrinking world, none of us can afford to compartmentalize our concerns. The most urgent issues of our time are as interconnected as the Earth itself. That's why Amnesty International and the Sierra Club have joined forces in a unique collaboration to balance and strengthen one another. 1 million members are taking on a new mission, supporting the rights of heroes who risked their lives to defend the Earth.
The collaboration between Amnesty International and the Sierra Club is good news. It's good news to me as a member, but more important than that, it's good news to people throughout the world.
Now we've got the peace people, the human rights people, and the green people have all come together and decided that we can together because our issues are not that dissimilar.
National corporations often show little regard for the air and the water. Instead, they pollute the earth in search of profit, at the expense of people and animals who live on it. Those most affected are marginalized, power dependent on the land for their existence. They live under governments that are undemocratic and repressive. When these governments work with greedy multinational corporations, the results are devastating. The environmental damage caused by multinational corporations and the governments that collaborate with them is one of the root causes of basic human relations.
Those governments which are most active of their human citizens are also most of their environment, of the entire ecosystem that is part of their work. So the link between human rights and the environment is very intimate, very close, very clear.
All over the world, modern-day Davids are battling corporate Goliaths, standing up for their rights in the earth. These citizen activists come from diverse backgrounds, but they share the same passion for protecting the earth and its people. Brazilian rubber tapper Chico Mendes planted the seeds for the convergence of the human rights and environmental movements during the 1960s. He didn't set out to defend. He merely wanted to preserve the source of his livelihood, the forest. By the mid-80s, Mendes had transformed a local struggle into a national campaign. A country where half the arable land is owned by less than 2% of the population. He became a powerful force for society. But the landowners would not surrender their privilege easily. 22nd, 1988, Chico Mendes was gunned down by an assassin's bullet. Thanks to Chico Mendes and the movement he started, the rubber tappers of the Amazon still work in the forest. Sustainable reserves have been established where humans and nature exist in one of the most biologically diverse places on Earth. Mendes left an enduring legacy: the power of one, taking action, bringing change. Across the Atlantic Ocean, another Indian writer, Ken Saro-Wiwa, also stood up for his community and land. The Niger Delta, fertile, aggressive, home to the Ogoni people. And home for the last 4 decades to a branch of one of the world's largest energy companies. Raw Shell, acting with the support of a Nigerian military dictatorship, began exploiting this region, leveling forests, contaminating rivers, destroying habitat, and producing oil at an enormous profit. But the Ogoni people were left with a disaster. Gas flares burning day and night, oil spills and blowouts, noisy, noxious, and polluting the air, water, and land. Ken Saro-Wiwa didn't mourn. He organized. In '9, he helped give the Ogoni people a voice by creating MOSO, Movement for the Survival of the Ogoni People. Its purpose was to protest against the corrupt dictatorship and destructive presence in the Niger Delta. But MOSOP's peaceful protests brought swift and brutal retaliation by the military regime. In 1994, Saro-Wiwa had been arrested and falsely accused of having conspired to kill 4 Ogoni chiefs. In response, Sierra Club and Amnesty International created a partnership and began alerting them at the Ogoni people's struggle against Shell. Amnesty Club members began a letter-writing and public education campaign to pressure both Shell and the Nigerians. Even as the world community came to their defense, Ken Saro-Wiwa and Ogoni colleagues were tortured and denied medical attention. Still, their spirit remained vibrant.
We are going to demand our rights peacefully, non-violently, and we shall win.
On October 31, 1995, Saro-Wiwa was sentenced to death. Both Sierra Club and Amnesty intensify their efforts, in particular to influence American political leaders to intervene on behalf of Saro-Wiwa. But the activists were no match for the influence of the oil industry.
Environmentalists all over the world called the U.S. government I personally reached out and talked to people I knew who had with Shell Oil, and I said to them clearly, look, whatever happens, if blood is shed, this blood will be on Shell's hands.
10 days after the sentencing, Nigeria dictatorship hanged Ken Saro-Wiwa and the other Ogoni. The resulting outcry reverberated throughout the world.
One of the purposes of this joint collaboration between the Sierra Club and Amnesty is to make certain that never again do we find ourselves in a situation in which after somebody is arrested and as time is running out, that we have to begin doing basic global education case.
Today the situation has changed. Oil still pumps about half of Nigeria's daily output of oil, but no longer in Ogoni land. Local opposition to Shell the region continues, and though the pollution and the scars remain, the Ogoni are looking to the future. Ken Saro-Wiwa, one person, one struggle, one life given to make a difference. Saro-Wiwa, like Chico Mendes, made the ultimate sacrifice, but these martyred heroes provided the impetus for the coming together of two movements. Today their example inspires other environmentalists who prevail under the threat of imprisonment or worse. They need support, which is why Amnesty International and the Sierra Club came together to ensure that no other brave individual is sacrificed in the struggle to protect the earth. Kenya. Wangari Maathai saw the destructive effects of development, and she took action. Maathai runs the Green Belt movement, the most successful tree planting programs in Africa. For her efforts, she was arrested repeatedly, tear-gassed, even beaten unconscious. Yet the movement has helped to reforest Kenya, green the planet, and empower her community. Russia. Alexander Nikitin, a retired naval captain, imprisoned and charged with espionage, a charge that carries the death penalty. His alleged crime? Writing a report about nuclear waste disposal far north. The government accused Nikitin of exposing state secrets, even though Russian books and newspapers had published the information. Nikitin, once an Amnesty International prisoner of conscience, was forbidden to the hometown of St. Petersburg. Amnesty and Sierra Club are organizing to focus attention on the case, even as the Russian government continues to crack environmentalists and human rights advocates. Burma. The military government has repeatedly accused of forcing villagers to work on infrastructure projects and of severely harassing and relocating members of ethnic minorities. This climate of increased militarization and repression, the US Baikal and French Total companies have chosen to build the Yadana gas pipeline, which has pristine rainforest, displacing endangered species and the diverse peoples who make them there. A decade ago, when he was just 18, Kasawa was tortured by the Burmese military after pro-democracy protests. To the forest, where he saw firsthand the destruction associated with building the pipeline. Now Kasawa is fighting back by speaking out in defense of his homeland and his community. In the face of great danger, he has returned to the region where the pipeline was constructed to document human rights and environmental abuses. India. Trained as a social worker, Meda Potkar was already attuned to humans when she began organizing peaceful protests against the ongoing Narmada Dam project, which threatens to displace tens of thousands of people and submerge thousands of acres of forest and agriculture. Patka has been leading marches against the dam for more than a decade. She has been beaten and imprisoned multiple times. Although she almost died during one 22-day hunger strike against the dam, Patka continues to use fasting as a form of protest. In the United States, activists have succeeded through varied means. But in other countries, it's not always as simple as casting a vote or staging a march.
For 100 years, over 100 years, members have been organizing, they've been speaking out to protect the environment. And we've been amazed to find that many of our colleagues trying to do the same thing in other countries to do so. Or if they're allowed to do so, they're then persecuted for that. And that's wrong, and nothing with this campaign.
Mother of us all, place of earth, we all are heirs to the reap of the world.
Environmental problems. In order to defend those who would give the earth a voice, it's critically important that those global problems be met with global standards of human rights.
And then we simply have to say what's right in the United States is also in Nigeria.
By demanding accountability and by defending universal environmental and human rights, we also defend ourselves and our own communities. What happens in Nigeria eventually has an impact in Nebraska and ultimately in everyone's backyard.
Impossible to imagine people thinking that environmental issues national boundaries. They do not. So if I care about the environment in my area, I care about the environment in the whole world.
We're all citizens on the same very small piece of real estate, and if we don't all stay engaged and we just decide that what happens far, thousands of miles away doesn't impact us, eventually it comes closer to home, and at that point we'll have lost the moral ground to say, no, that's not right.
Speaking to those who cannot, and then acting to support their freedom, is our response, citizens of the world.
The steps that are to be taken are to hold people and institutions accountable, and with every institution it's different.
We're demanding that companies voluntarily incorporate international human rights standards in their company policies. Activists are writing letters, calling CEOs.
Make a difference in our policy. Make a difference. Contact the president. Contact the White House. Contact the State Department. Contact the Congress.
One activist can make all the difference in the world. Just making others aware that this is happening. You know, it can create a ripple, carry on, to thousands of voices.
Please help to give the earth a voice. Join the Amnesty International and Sierra Club campaign to defend environmentalists under fire. The Earth's future depends on you, and so do its defenders. Just as heroes with vision work their everyday miracle, turning the power of one into the power of many, you can make a world of difference.
Believe hai, hai.